YouTube, welcome to the PrettyBrown&Nerdy channel. I'm Jasmine with a review of The Joker starring Joaquin Phoenix. Now, I know, this review is really late, but I had to process this movie in all honesty because it was a lot. There was so much to take in and to really process with this movie. There were a lot of things going on, a lot of different subjects being covered in this movie, and I feel like this is a movie that you will either have to see maybe twice to really be able to break down everything that you are meant to take in during this film. This is a film that I haven't seen come out of DC at any point. No movie they have made up until this point has really made an impact for me as a moviegoer watching it like this movie has. And I think that really says a lot, honestly. To really sum it up, I actually enjoyed this movie a lot. I went in pretty unsure about whether or not I would like the movie, and I know there's been a lot of articles leading up to the film's release from press talking about the violence and basically what is portrayed in this movie. But I will be very frank and honest with you when I say that this movie, as far as violence goes, wasn't as explicit and graphic as they were making it out to be. I feel like the violence that was depicted in this movie is no different from watching TV shows like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead these days. So I really feel like it was just them really making these concerns and blowing it out of proportion. I'm not trying to say that it's for no reason. I mean, it's okay to be concerned about what we're taking in as an audience, but from what I've seen in other films and even television shows, the violence was not even as graphic as some of the TV shows I have watched recently. So the movie centers around the character Arthur Fleck. This is a Joker before he becomes the villain. The director Todd Phillips really sets the tone as soon as you jump into the film. They waste no time in letting you really know what the tone is going to be and what the emotions are going to be throughout this film. Given Todd Phillips' directing history, he's done a lot of comedies. He's done The Hangover is a good one for an example. Given his film discography, I was kind of uncertain as to how this was going to appear with him directing the Joker, but I will say that he did a phenomenal job. I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of talent that he displayed throughout this movie, and the same goes for Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix, whatever he does, like, that is method acting to its core. Like, that is how method acting should be, in my personal opinion. Not this crap that Jared Leto was trying to do with Suicide Squad, being like, method acting is not being a jerk and sending rats to your castmates and all that stuff. And I know he's really salty about the fact that he didn't get a solo film, but I feel like Joaquin Phoenix really raised the bar in portraying Arthur Fleck, his character, and his slow trickle down into insanity. From the beginning of the film to the end, you can see each phase of Arthur's like spiraling into insanity, and just the way that there's little subtle movements and things that Joaquin does. He just really brings about that chilling factor that is needed with this character. I honestly don't really know how to make a really concise review without it extending past 20 minutes because there's so much in this film to really take in. It shows you a lot of how society can treat people with disabilities. It can show you society at its worst when it comes to how it supports people and funds, you know, organizations that assist with mental health and wellness for individuals. It shows poverty within the city and how it can cause chaos and a divide between citizens and the politicians. This movie tries to cover a lot of different broad topics, and while it's not the violence part that I will say was, you know, overly excessive, and something to be concerned about. I think what is the concern here is what people are going to take away from watching this film, because this film is very heavy and it can be a little triggering, you know, in some points. And it's just like, what are we taking out? What is the person going to take away from this movie, and what can it possibly cause someone to act out on? You know what I'm saying? That's what I would be more concerned about with this film. I don't really think this film glamorized the Joker in any way. Arthur Fleck had a very hard life. There were people around him that were not exactly good for him and manipulated him and took advantage of him, but that doesn't excuse anything that he does as the movie progresses. I never felt at any point that he was the hero. I never felt at any point that I should be on his side, if that makes any sense. And they show you that despite what he has experienced, there's no excuse for the actions that he chooses to take. And it shows you that you can have a character that can be sympathetic in some points, but at the end of the day, that didn't excuse Arthur's narcissism, victim blaming, a lot of different things that Arthur did that really made him a terrible person. He felt like there were a lot of things that were owed to him. He grew up with his mother telling him that he was special and that he was brought into the world to make people laugh. She would embed all these things into his head that made him feel sort of a little entitled in a lot of cases. And you see that a lot through this film. Like, things are owed to him and the world is responsible for where he is, and it's everyone else's fault. That's what I really got out of this movie with the character. It really showed in actuality that Arthur's character is so engrossed in his own world. He's always, you know, thinking and fantasizing over certain situations and how certain situations are in his head, that he's not really quite in touch with reality. And he's sort of really an unreliable narrator in this case, because when you watch the film and when you get towards the end, it's hard to really gauge what is reality and what is in Arthur's head. And this comes into play with Zazie Beetz' character. The trailers were very deceptive in how they, you know, showed us her character. She had a very small part in this movie, and she did a really good job with the part that she had for the amount of screen time that she had. And there were really, like, certain moments that you really come to realize just how out of touch Arthur is with her character in this case. I don't want to spoil anything for those who have not seen it yet, but it doesn't exactly go the way that we think it goes between Arthur and Zazie's character. It takes a huge turn, and really just that moment is really eye-opening in some ways, with just how far Arthur is willing to go, just how far he's willing to go into darkness. All humans have a darkness within them, but a lot of us choose which way we want to go. We still have the ability to understand that there are some things that we're just not willing to do, and some things that we're not willing to go that far with. And I think that slow buildup of Arthur's choice really comes into fruition toward the end of the movie. His character obsesses over this talk show host who at one point sees one of Arthur's like comedy shows that have been filmed that he just completely bombs, and brings Arthur on the show to essentially make fun of him and use him as a comedic punchline and everything. And that is when, you know, some really shocking things go down. I think that there's a few scenes in this movie that are really going to just be like in your face and just not really give you any time to really like process what's really happened. But all in all, like, this is so vast that I'm just trying not to really spoil it for those who have not seen it. But I really think it's a great film to sit down and just absorb and process at the end. For some that might be a little sensitive to the content that's being displayed, I probably would not recommend this movie for them. But all in all, from the cast, the writing, the cinematography, everything that is set up in this movie, I feel like the whole entire team did a phenomenal job. And I understand that this is DC's kind of stray away from what they've done so far. This is kind of like a separate production, or like a parent or like a child studio of DC, in a sense, where they want to explore and venture into these darker R-rated films and these you know, different stories. And I think this was a great route that they took, and this was a great decision. I know it was a little it came out of nowhere when we found out that this movie was going to be made, but I feel like DC did a good job. And if we can keep up this pace and kind of bring some of the elements in this movie you know, into their lighter, you know, more consumer friendly like superhero films, then I think they're on a great track. I know some people said that it has a lot of similarities to Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, but I feel like they've taken little bits from those movies that really helped uplift the Joker film as a whole. It's not like a complete carbon copy of those films, but it does take a few elements at sometimes that can come off as extremely pretentious. And if they're like really reaching into that pot for that Oscar, I know that Joaquin Phoenix is probably going to be an Oscar contender for sure, given his performance in this film was just phenomenal. I was a little bummed that Brian Tyree Henry didn't have like a huge part in this film. I think when we saw the trailers, they put him in just to really like say, look at all these like awesome stars we have in this film, come watch the movie. I think he was mainly just like placed in the trailer just to grab people to go to the film from seeing all the actors that were going to be in it. But he didn't really have a big part in any way. Like, I don't care, get your coins either way, dude. Like, I have no complaints if you're getting your coins from DC and Warner Brothers for this movie, but I just wish he would have had a bigger part in it. All in all, extremely amazing cast. You know, some people say that it didn't feel like a Batman movie, it didn't feel like a DC movie, and that's because, one, it's not a Batman movie, and yes, it did still have elements of a DC film. They still gave you that immersion into Gotham, but it was just like Gotham in a way that we haven't seen it before. I still felt very much like I was watching the film of a character that is in that universe. I mean, I don't really know how much more they want like done. I mean, Gotham is still like, given it's a fictional city, it's still very realistic in a lot of ways. So I don't know what people were really expecting. I mean, do we have to like throw like Commissioner Gordon and like other villain here and villain there to really be like, hey, this is a DC movie, it's in the Batman world? I don't feel like they need all that fluff. I'm glad that they just kept it simple, and they still had like, you know, the street signs and newspapers and things to make you feel that this is Gotham. But I think it was just portrayed in a different way that we haven't seen, and I didn't have any issue with it. All in all, amazing film. There's not much I can really delve into without spoiling the movie, but I do recommend that you go see and take in this movie for yourself. I know that the press and outlets have just been like on a field day with this film and the crazy violence and immense like content in this film. I know like they've been pushing that a lot, but I honestly wanted to go see this movie and you know, process it and formulate my own opinions about it. And I actually ended up enjoying it a lot. But I want to know what you guys thought. Have you seen The Joker? What did you like about the movie? What did you not like about the movie? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. All our links will be in the description below. And I will see you guys on the next movie review.